Josh Appel. He was on the call nationally yesterday in Tampa as the Falcons squeaked by the Buccaneers. And then he watched the Dolphins game last night, and he's with us here at Twin Peaks in Davie. And I'm going to start with the Dolphins game. It's the same question I asked Aronde. Did we learn anything about the Dolphins last night? Because there was this narrative going in that I don't think any of us really wanted to acknowledge, that the one loss was to a very good team. The wins were against not so good teams. Last night kind of feeds that narrative, but it did feel different than the Buffalo loss. So I'm wondering if you watched that Dolphins game last night and you said, you know what, here's what I learned about this Dolphins team that maybe I didn't want to acknowledge being true a week ago.
Here's my take. I don't have a take on the Dolphins last night. I don't know how you can accurately judge them based on who they were missing. And I know every team deals with injuries, but these aren't season-ending injuries. This team will look different, maybe even as soon as this Sunday. Going to Philadelphia on a Sunday night is one of the toughest environments in the NFL. I thought the Dolphins defense played probably their best game of the year, just considering the opponent. Scored a touchdown, got stops when they needed to, save for that final drive that really did them in after the Tua interception. I don't like the schedule narrative because it's not like college where you get to pick your opponents and when you play them. And I also, on one hand with that, when they play these teams that are inferior to them, they aren't close games. And the Patriots' final score was 24-17, but that never really felt like a close game. They are blowing teams out. So I don't like that narrative either. I think certainly it's fair to say, they're 0-2 against Buffalo and Philadelphia, the two best teams they've played. No doubt. But to me, I saw a different team last night in Philadelphia, not just because the guys were hurt, but than the one that we saw in Buffalo. The defense in Buffalo didn't have a chance at stopping them, that Josh Allen and that Bills offense. Last night, they got pressure on Jalen Hurts. You finally see what we hoped to with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips rushing on opposite sides of each other. I thought Jerome Baker and David Long were both great. They're really thin at corner, obviously. They're missing two all-pros at that position. It's naive to think that that's not going to make a difference. And I know some people will point out that the Jets were also missing their top two corners and beat the Eagles. But they were at home. It's an afternoon game. Those factors matter. Jalen Hurts obviously didn't play well. And look, the Jets defense, better than the Dolphins defense. I'm confident in saying that. I think that things change so much on a week-to-week basis in the NFL that people overreacting to this game as if it says something one way or another about the Dolphins just seems like a take to have a take. Overreaction Monday. We got to say something. Someone's got to be a fraud today. It was 24-17 in the fourth quarter last night. The Dolphins had the ball at the 25 of Philadelphia going into tie. And this is even independent of the penalty discrepancy, which I hate doing the blaming the officials thing unless it's egregious. Last night was egregious. It's also not why they lost. It made a difference. It wasn't why they lost. They're just going to look different when you're missing 3/5 of an offensive line. They're going to look different when they're missing who they were missing on defense. I don't think there's a lot you can really take away from last night. I really don't.
And Josh, to your point, they're putting up 30, and that was my thing. Eli Apple and Kader Kohu wouldn't start for most teams in this league.
No.
They're not number one and number two corners. I got you 31 points. I think they held them down long enough with AJ and Devontae. Like they did their thing. I think Vic Fangio called a good game with mixing in the blitzes and different things. I think that was all good. But to bring back the two losses, it was Buffalo with a first-round latent defensive line that was getting off the ball and winning one-on-ones. And then I just saw it with Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick and all those guys. Like, that's what scares me now with the Dolphins because the two games they lost, they got beat up by the opposing team's defensive line.
And I think that's fair, too. And I think that the Dolphins can survive with Kendall Lamb at left tackle. It becomes a more glaring absence with Teron Armstead when the guys playing to his right are Lester Cotton and Liam Eichenberg. I would argue that while Teron Armstead is a better player generally than Connor Williams is the more important player for this offense. Just forget what Liam's ability to block and get upfield, whatever. Forget that. Just this offense is predicated so much on timing, and his snaps are slow. He hit his own butt last night on one of them early in the first half. Tua got sacked because he snapped it too early before The right guard, Robert Hunt, gave him the silent count to snap it back. I mean, these are little things that in an offense that's based on finesse and speed and timing makes such a huge difference.
And they were even saying last night, too, you got to play a flawless game against a team like Philadelphia on the road, and those little mistakes add up.
And so if you're going up against what I believe to be one of the 2 or 3 best defensive fronts in Philadelphia, and you're shorthanded on the interior of your offensive line without Connor Williams, without Isaiah Wynn, makes, like I said, Kendall Lamb a bit more of makes Teron Armstead a bit more of a glaring absence. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. Those players are a lot better than Liam Eichenberg and Lester Cotton. Like, they are going to dominate. It was a great matchup for them, and credit to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the better team. But again, this isn't some like massive indictment on the Dolphins that they can't go and beat a good team. They were in this game last night.
Well,
like,
they haven't, though.
Sometimes you just lose.
And I'm not saying that there's not context, but the numbers are the numbers. They have not beaten a good team, and the next 2 games are going to be kind of telling, because I think they're going to feed the narrative, because I think they're going to handle their business against New England, not a very good team, win against Buffalo aside, and then they're going to go to Germany, and they're going to play the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs game is such a lose-lose game for the Dolphins, because if they lose, they still can't beat any good teams. If they win, well, they didn't do it at Arrowhead. They did it in Germany, neutral site.
Wow, it's very close to Argentina, so
which I think is a neighboring country to Kansas City, Missouri.
I don't know if they
somewhere it's like Honolulu, Argentina, Frankfurt, Germany. I don't know. I was half listening to Crowder in the last second.
Did they release globes in school? I think I've seen one of those.
Could you pick out all the countries like look,
it's a better chance of me picking more countries than I could pick out United States state.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
You're good with international geography?
I'm not good because I'm the guy that said I don't know where London is.
Valid point.
London Fletcher's black. He's probably not from there.
Right. And then I believe you asked if it's the boot.
The boot, and that's Italy. But now I know Italy's the boot. And now, Australia, some easy ones. Canada's easy. It's big as hell over top of us. There's some easy ones out there I can capitalize
But Argentina? Could you find Argentina?
South America. Brazil's big as hell. Argentina's up underneath them. Chile, the little side chick. Yeah, the little side chick is Chile. Chile.
You good with geography, Appel?
I'm learning. I thought I'd come on here to learn some football from Channing, a guy who played, and now I'm learning geography.
It is a funny transition from Crowder to talk about not knowing where London is to all of a sudden being the guy who's giving a lesson on South America.
That's impressive.
It is impressive.
I was a National Legion of Honor in high school.
Were you in touch with the Young Astronomers Club?
No, Solana. That wasn't invented until Facebook.
I was a National League fan growing up, Cubs fan, and just enjoyed the National League.
I got little coins at home. Legion of Honor, Legion of Scholar.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Legion of Boom.
I used to, My mom used to beat me if I didn't get A's.
Is that so?
Yep.
Did you get A's?
Straight A's. I graduated high school with LaFour something.
You brought your son here to Twin Peaks to work on homework, ostensibly.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the best maneuver?
Well, come to work with Dad, but you better tighten up and finish that project.
Are you the one that helps him out with projects and assignments? Are you good with that stuff?
You know what? That's double-sided question. You said, am I the one that helps him? Yes, because I try to be a great dad.
Or am I good at that?
My success of it, and I would say I'm not, because every time I help him, he gets no good. You see what's going on now? My wife's over there with him. This is when the real work gets done. I tell him how to insert pictures.
Right. Yeah. Very similar to our parenting style, me and Lori. We're like, hey, let me show you a couple of flash paper moves. And then Lori will come in and show you actually how you do the homework.
I told him the other day, I was supposed to be having homework. I was like, hey, when you walk in class, go give your teacher a high five. He was like, for what? I was like, because it's personal relationships 100%. Here. I was like, yeah, if you have an 89 and you're the dude that comes and says, what's up, Mr. Smith, every day, he's going to bump that to a 90.
100%.
And,
that's the most important lesson he'll learn all year.
Life's about relationships.
Life is about relationships. You said a mouthful, Appel.
I love when people ask me, Crowder, what do you have a degree in? I fall out laughing. Because how can you just assume I have a degree in anything? That's not obvious. I don't have a degree in anything. It's crazy.
I have one. Nobody asks me.
Same.
Yeah. I'm like,
Well, people ask me though, what did you learn? I'm like, I learned how to BS, and I BS for a living
with the best of them.
Yeah,
do you
with the best of them.
do you have a degree in communication? I learned how to talk when I was 3. Like, I've been communicating.
Really makes us feel good about having degrees in communication.
Communicating since I was 3. Now I got to go to school to talk to humans.
Anyway, though, going back to the Dolphins, though, you think they beat New England with no problem,
Yeah.
and then you think they lose to Kansas City.
I don't know. I don't know what happens in Kansas City because I don't think the Chiefs are the same team that they've been previously. I think they're a lot more vulnerable than they have been.
But so
in
was
the last
Buffalo.
couple.
Now we really know that.
Of course, but I do wonder what that game down here against Buffalo will look like later on in the season when the Dolphins hopefully are at closer to full strength than they were when they went to
Well, the
Buffalo.
question, though, it's like, here's the disconnect I'm having with that, because I was having that conversation with Aronde and Barry at lunch. We keep going, well, when they're healthy, well, what makes you believe that they're going to all be healthy at the same time at any point this season?
Totally fair. I just think that this team is built, unfortunately, around a few guys who have been injury prone in the past. I mean, Xavier Howard has dealt with injuries the last few years. Teron Armstead, we know about it. Jalen Ramsey, obviously a freak thing with his knee during camp. Nobody can plan for that. Tua, yeah, of course. And and I'll tell you what, the jiu-jitsu, it's been working. I mean, he knows how to take hits now. He takes care of himself. He's not standing back there and taking hits. A couple of times last night, he just punted on a play and slid down, and that was that. Hopefully that continues because they're going to need him if they're going to do anything this year. And we talk about that, all through the summer, all through camp, and obviously now through the season. I don't think there should be any level of concern here. To me, this is still an 11-12 win team.
Elite?
Like bordering on it. I still think that despite all the context, they still have to go out and beat one of these teams. I don't think it's this huge issue where they're a fraud and they're never going to be able to do it. I think that's baloney and hyperbole and not
like
serious.
Minnesota last year had a ton of victories during the regular
By
season.
one score.
And we kind of knew that maybe this isn't real.
Fraudulent, yeah.
And then you find out it was pretty fraudulent. And then you're watching them this season and it kind of, you don't think that of the Dolphins.
No, because like last year with the Vikings, they had something like 11 wins by one score last year. That's not sustainable. They got a lot, pretty much every break you could possibly get, they got last year. This year at the beginning of the season, I'm pretty sure they lost their first 2 or 3 games all by one score. That stuff tends to even out. What I was saying earlier, the Dolphins have played a light schedule, but when they play these teams, they're beating them into the ground. Like these games aren't close. They are clearly above that. Really, everybody, the teams who aren't elite, like they're probably, I would say they're at the top of the second tier right now, only because they haven't beat the teams that are in that first tier. But that can change with one victory in a couple of weeks in Germany. It really can. I think, making these sweeping generalizations that they're frauds and they're this and they're that and they can't win the big game after 7 weeks with a banged up roster where they're in first place in the division, after you've watched Buffalo lose to the Jets and lose to New England, like those are 2 really bad losses. And I don't think that there's a clear-cut team, maybe San Francisco, but even then, they lost to P.J. Walker last week. I don't think there's a team in this league that's unbeatable. I really don't. And with this Dolphins offense, they can beat anybody. If the defense just gives them average play, if the defense gives the Dolphins what they did last night, Miami's going to win more often than they won't.
And Josh, something that what me and OG were talking about earlier is that if you think about it, Dolphins scored 17. The Bradley Chubb fumble was the field goal.
Yeah.
Because they didn't do anything with that drive. And then the Jerome Baker pick 6. So that's 10 points of the 17. So the Dolphins offense really only generated that one pass from Tua to Tyreek. Did that make you question anything about this offense? Because at one point they had 14 plays for 36 yards in that first half, where I think I see the big play potential, and that's the Tyreek thing. You're on the 30, you get one good play, you can score. But did yesterday make you question the offense at all? Because it kind of, I don't say that, I think they're a very good offense. We know they're historic right now.
Right.
They're scoring 50 points a game at home and all that. But last night, the one thing popped in my mind was like, I question this offense a little bit more now.
I think that's fair, but I also think that this offense is predicated on running the ball. And last night, they couldn't do it. Missing the guys on the offensive line, that matchup, they were going to lose that matchup. And it kind of wrecks everything for them. And if they can't run it, teams don't really have to respect the deep ball. And you saw a lot last night. I think Chris Collinsworth pointed it out. that until the Dolphins would be able to run the ball a bit and get those safeties up closer to the line of scrimmage, they were just going to hang back there, and that was going to be that. I think the general blueprint is if you can contain this team running the football, you have a much better shot against defending the deep ball with Tyreek, despite the fact that he can run by anybody. But to your point, the first drive where it looks like they have an easy touchdown to Tyreek, ticky-tack holding call. Takes a touchdown off the board. They're driving later in the game. Ticky-tack holding call on Julian Hill on the outside. Instead of a first down, it's 1st and 20. Like, there are little things here and there, and I don't want to do the referee thing. I really don't. But there are calls and non-calls in the game that at the time may not seem big, but when you look back at it, it changes the complexion of a drive. It changes field position. It changes a lot. So I think last night, just such a hard game to really extrapolate anything big picture. They went on the road against a really good team in a tough environment in prime time, didn't play well, and they lost. It happens. It's the NFL. They weren't going to go 16-1.
Didn't play well and almost won.
Right.
Could have won.
This feels completely different than the Buffalo game because the defense kept them in it. The defense got them a score. They were in that game in the fourth quarter. And you brought up a great point. I forget which one of you said it. But
had to be me.
Probably. The tush push, the brotherly shove. It's so much less fun when it's against your team.
Yeah.
It really is. Because they got, 2 stops on that drive to force a fourth down?
But it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. As soon as they were within 1.5 yards of the line to gain on fourth down, they were getting a first down, and that was it. And that chewed up so much extra time. And, that drive was just so backbreaking. And I think everybody kind of felt, at least I did watching it, that after the interception thrown by Tua right before that, that might have been it. Because as well as the defense played last night, it almost felt like, all right, when is the dam going to burst here?
And it did.